Estamos entonces en la mesa que se llama Reencuentros y Atracción Sexual Genética, para la cual contamos con dos ponentes, Carl Zulens y Julie Dinning. Y me gustaría, en tanto y en cuanto es un tema relativamente nuevo para nosotros, no sé si como tal, pero sí como tema de trabajo en nuestros congresos y reuniones. Yo oí hablar por primera vez de esto en los primeros 2000, en un congreso en Estados Unidos, y desde entonces fui siguiendo un poco la producción y el devenir del trabajo en este tema. ¿Qué se entiende por atracción sexual genética o qué denomina esto? Denomina, si bien nuestras ponentes lo van, yo creo, a explicar más en detalle, me gustaría poner en antecedente mínimamente el tema. Se entiende por atracción sexual genética una atracción sexual que se produce entre personas que están vinculadas por algún lazo de parentesco biológico, digamos, o genético concretamente, que se encuentran cuando adultos. Es decir, se trata de una atracción sexual genética que se produce o se produciría entre gente que no se ha criado junta, es decir, no se denomina con este nombre. No se piensa que esto se produzca entre gente que se ha criado conjuntamente, sino entre personas que se reúnen cuando adultas. Y tampoco estamos hablando de incesto, que sería otra cosa, digamos, ¿no? El incesto sería cuando la atracción sexual genética de alguna manera se concreta en una relación. Esto se trata de una atracción que tiene que ver con la reunión posterior a muchos años de estar separados y que en ese sentido se produce más habitualmente entre personas adoptadas o entre familias que se reencuentran luego de un largo periodo porque alguien ha sido adoptado. El término como tal, el término atracción sexual genético, fue acuñado por Bárbara Goño a fines de los 80, que es la persona, la profesional a quienes Carly y Julie, con quienes Carly y Julie han trabajado y cuya línea de trabajo continúan. Inicialmente esto empezó en un centro en Chicago, Bárbara Goño, y si bien ella ya no se desplaza en grandes viajes, Carly y Julie son las personas a quienes con quienes ella ha trabajado y digamos quienes llevan adelante su línea inicial de trabajo. Entonces creo que lo mejor es presentarles a Carly en principio. Ella tiene un máster en Arts y en Art Therapy, en terapia de arte por la Universidad de Illinois. Hace más de casi 15 años que trabaja en el tema. Tiene una larga experiencia en esta temática y en situaciones tales como ansiedad, depresión y situaciones de estrés postraumático. Es una terapeuta que hace muchos años que trabaja en este tema. Y además tiene se ha especializado en el trabajo con personas que se reúnen luego de años con alguna familia con quienes están genéticamente relacionadas. Les dejo entonces con ella y luego presentaré a Julie.
Good morning.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to say is that you can review this presentation on the internet. So if you miss anything and you want to go back, it will be available on the internet for you to review later. So we come from the US. I do have a master's degree in art therapy, which is very similar to counseling or therapy. The only difference is I help people explore their thoughts, their feelings, their problems by making art. I work alongside with Julie now, and we have Barbara Gagno, who she's spoken about, has given us the forum to run now, and we have taken that forum where people can come anywhere in the country and write, and we can respond to them. We also create a website to help people with genetic sexual attraction, and we write a blog every day where we post articles about genetic sexual attraction, or GSA is another term. I myself was adopted at 4 months. I was raised in a good family, but there was something inside of me that really wanted to find my biological roots. I reunited with my birth family at age 32 when I became a mother. At that time, or during my reunion phase, I experienced GSA. But I didn't know that's what I was experiencing because I'd never heard about it. I was never prepared that this could happen in a reunion. I'm currently writing a book, What is Genetic Sexual Attraction? And hopefully it'll be out in a couple months.
We're going to be going back. Yeah, well, okay, absolutely.
Okay?
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Hi, my name is Julie Deneen. I work with Carly together on this project about genetic sexual attraction. I have my bachelor's degree in clinical psychology, but as a job, I am a writer. I developed the forum and website and blog alongside with Carly, and we connected because I too was adopted. I was raised by my birth mother, but not my birth father, and I reunited with him at age 30, and we had what could be described as a genetic sexual attraction experience that was very difficult to go through and very traumatic. And in that, I met Carly, and once we began to see more clearly what was going on, we connected with Barbara Gagno, and eventually she gave us all the work that she had done so that we could continue it forward. And that's why we're here with you today to talk about genetic sexual attraction. I do have a book on Amazon called Wanted that is my personal story. It was featured on CNN in America. If you're interested, I have the website address. So today's presentation, we're going to go through genetic sexual attraction in detail so that hopefully you can have a better understanding of it. We'll talk about what exactly is genetic sexual attraction. We'll talk about who is at risk when families reunite, what causes one family to have this problem and not another. We'll talk about the symptoms, what you can expect. You can kind of tell when this is brewing under the surface through physical, mental, emotional symptoms that we've noted in our work with people who have GSA. What is the progression of GSA? We want to try to outline for you how it goes from the reunion moment all the way down to the GSA, and then in some cases it becomes a sexual relationship that's very inappropriate, usually causing a lot of destruction and damage to both families, and we're here because we want to prevent that. There are different types of GSA because there are relationships, sibling relationships that reunite, parents and children reuniting, fathers, daughters, mothers, and sons, and there are unique aspects to each of those relationships. We want to talk about how to support adoptees in reunion, and that is also how we prevent GSA from happening in that support. And so I think am I turning it over to you, or, okay. So what is genetic sexual attraction? It is a set of emotions that happens when two family members reunite. It's defined as romantic or sexual. There is a chemical reaction that happens in the brain, just in the same way that you would walk down the street and find someone that you are attracted to and feel that surge of hormones. This happens in reunion. It's a very scary feeling because most adoptees, when they reunite with family, are not expecting to feel that way. They are expecting to feel, you know, an emotional attachment, and then when they start to feel a sexual or romantic feeling, it's very scary and they don't know what to do with it. What happens is, the theory behind it is that when a mother and a child or a father and a child bond, when the baby is brought home, there is a feeling of falling in love. I'm sure if any of you are parents, you know when you bring a baby home from the hospital, you touch them and you kiss them and you love them, and if you're a mother, you breastfeed. And there's a lot of hormonal, physical, chemical things that are happening between the parent and the child. When that does not happen, that bonding process goes dormant. And when you reunite as an adult, all of those feelings come back to the surface, except now you are a sexually mature adult, and so you are interpreting those feelings as sexual feelings, when in fact it's the desire to bond. In order for it to be categorized as GSA, both parties must be separated. We don't have a lot of scientific evidence because there's not been a lot of research, but we think that the years between ages 0 and 6 are crucial, that you must be separated for those primary bonding years in order to call it GSA. It has to be a blood relative, okay? Part of genetic sexual attraction is that you feel an attraction to someone who is genetically like you. And it is also categorized as a strong desire to bond. Sometimes genetic sexual attraction does not start out that way, and so we have a term, genetic attraction, which takes that sexual component out. We've noticed in our work with adoptees that there are a lot of people who reunite and feel that intense desire to be with that other person, but it's not sexual or romantic, but it still does have a lot of the same characteristics of GSA without that sexual attraction. And what we know is that GA can very quickly turn into GSA if they are not supported and counseled through the process. So, who is at risk for GSA? We don't know how many people experience it, partly because it's such a taboo subject. People are afraid to talk about it. But there was one study done quite a while ago, and the theory is that this can happen into up to 50% of reunions, that one or both parties can have these strange emotions. Obviously, you're at risk if you have been separated from your blood relative. The longer you are separated, the more at risk you are. It does not seem to matter whether you are male, female, homosexual, heterosexual, father, mother, son, sibling. It seems to affect everybody across the board. We have noticed that in our work with people who are experiencing this GSA, that anyone who has a previous history of mental illness, addiction, infidelity, any liabilities in their personality or weaknesses that haven't been attended to, we notice that they are much more at risk for this dangerous and inappropriate relationship if they start to feel those feelings because they don't have the boundaries to deal with it. So I'm going to talk about the symptoms of GSA.
So it's easier to break down the symptoms into different categories because GSA is so consuming when it's happening. There's the mental aspect, the emotional, the physical, the social, and the spiritual. When someone is experiencing GSA, they're constantly thinking about their family member who they have this attraction to. They're highly distractible because they can't concentrate on work, on getting the house done, their other tasks, their other jobs during the day. We had a member come to the forum who wrote to us. Her name was Sally, who reunited with her brother, and all her attention kept going to her brother, that she no longer was connecting with her boyfriend anymore. He noticed that she was withdrawing from him. The emotional aspect is that you have the strong desire to bond. You almost feel as if you're euphoric or high. What love songs are about, nothing could take you down. Everything is brighter and smells better, and you're basically feeling the high of love. With the emotional, when you're feeling disconnected from this person, either because of physical distance or they don't call back or write back, you almost feel as if you're on a roller coaster and dive down into depression or despair. One daughter who was reunited with her father, and he would just, because he had difficulty monitoring his feelings, he would just stop talking to try to come to a place to deal with it, but it made her feel as if she was being re-abandoned again. So with the roller coaster of feelings, when he does talk to her again, she'll feel that high again and then go back down. So we get a lot of people who get very depressed, even suicidal. We see a lot of people who think the only way out of this is through death. So it's taken very seriously. The physical aspects is that all of a sudden people become more focused on their appearance. They want to look good for this person, or they get perfume, they want to smell better. They might be buying more clothes or getting their hair done. Sometimes I've talked to some people that when a brother and sister connect and they hold hands for the first time or just brush each other as they're walking, they will feel a physical sensation in their body as if electricity is running through their body, or their heart will beat faster. There's the physical need to constantly want to hold or touch, be held. I noticed in parent-child GSA, the child just really wants to snuggle or be hugged and be held. There's this, because it feels so good that you're in love, you have this such surge of energy. It almost feels like a drug that you don't need sleep. You just have all this energy, but it all goes towards this one person. This is the only thing you can focus on. And then it develops into a sexual desire. You start thinking about this person in a romantic way. And then, of course, that becomes very confusing because you're not supposed to feel this way with a family member, and yet this person is a stranger you didn't even know. So it creates this dynamic of, why do I feel this way towards a family member, but they are a stranger to me? With the social aspect is that all of a sudden, because you feel so compelled to be connected with this person, is that any warning signs that this person might not be a good person for you or they have faults, you don't see that right away. All you see is the goodness of them. We also notice that people isolate themselves from their friends. Sometimes GSA comes when there's already a marriage established, and we have spouses on our forum who come and say, my husband reunited with his sister, and I think he's experiencing this, but he's not talking to me about it. And I'm feeling so left out. I know something's going on, and if I bring it up, he denies everything. So we also support the family members who are victims of this too, because their spouse is off feeling this high and want to reconnect with this person, and they're feeling pushed aside. Because it feels so good and you want to protect it, almost like that drug, you get very defensive if someone says you're spending too much time with them. And a lot of people in GSA will say, but this is my newly found brother or sister, or this is my father. I get to spend this time with them. It's almost as if it's an excuse to do whatever you want. The spiritual aspect also comes to play. Sometimes people rationalize that this feels so good, it is meant to be, this is a gift from God. So their mind plays tricks as if to give them permission to do the taboo. Sometimes people, their religious upbringing doesn't connect with this. So all of a sudden they cut themselves off of their religion to pursue this relationship. One of the ways to help prevent people or talk them through is to remind them of who they were before they reunited, remind them of their spiritual aspect and that connection. And then when things start going bad in GSA, people feel like they're being punished from God, or disconnected, or why is God doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this to happen in my life?
So next, I'm going to talk about the progression of GSA and how it starts from the beginning. And I'm going to use my own experience to try to help shed light on how this happened. The first one is a connection. You have an overwhelming desire to reunite or to find that blood relative. So for me, I wanted to find my biological father because he had never met my 3 children, and I felt this need to connect. So we reunited, and he also felt a very intense need to connect with me. So that's the first one. The second one is called intense focus. And this is the point at which, as Carly was saying, all of your attention, your focus now goes to this one person. For me personally, I felt like I had 30 years that I had to quickly make up. There was a lot of grief and pain and loss, and so I thought I needed to see him as often as possible, and he felt the same way because my kids, he had missed the birth of his 3 grandchildren. So there was this intensity and focus, and people around me and people around him started to say, you're spending a lot of time with this person, and I couldn't explain why I was so consumed with the need to be with him all the time. The next one is isolation and secrecy. What happened after that is my father has a lot of personal liabilities, some previous addictions and some other things that I didn't see, that I was blind to because I was so happy to finally be with my father again. I was thinking very much like a small child. I felt like I had regressed to a younger age, and I couldn't see the things that people around me could see, which was that he was not necessarily a safe man to be so close with. But in my head, he was my father, and what do fathers do for their daughters? They protect, they love, and they keep safe. And so I assumed that that's what he would do for me and couldn't see anything else. So I withdrew. Every time someone gave me a warning, I became more and more secretive and isolating and kept my communication with him just between him and I, so that I didn't have to deal with everyone else saying, Julie, pay attention. The next one is physical. And this was a very traumatic moment for me. My father introduced the idea of taking the feelings and putting them into action. And I resisted and I said no several times, because as a Christian married woman, I knew this was not okay on many, many levels. But I also was incredibly vulnerable, because I knew that if I didn't enter that he might abandon me again. It was that small child fear that had happened all the way back from when I was adopted. So eventually I gave in, and there was a physical encounter between us. The next one is crisis, internal versus external. At this point, and in my case, this caused an extreme crisis in me. I put myself in therapy very quickly to try to deal with the fallout and the consequences. Now, for some people who have GSA, they don't have this crisis moment right away. It happens after a prolonged period of time where they're engaging in a sexual relationship. But at some point in every GSA case, we see a crisis. Either internally or externally, people find out, and there's a huge, huge fallout. The last one is separation. And this is the very, very sad part about genetic sexual attraction, is that the whole point of reunion is to bring families back together, and GSA ultimately rips them apart again. We've seen cases where fathers and daughters or siblings run away. They run away to a country where adult consensual incest is legal, and they abandon their entire family. So in that case, separation is from their family units. Usually the relationship falls apart because it is not on a sustainable foundation, and at that point they've now lost their family member and their family of origin. In my case, I finally, after therapy and several months, realized that this relationship was going to destroy me if I didn't get out of it. And I got out of it, and I separated from him so that I could go on to be a healthy wife and mom for my family. And so for me, this was a very sad moment that I had to grieve not only the loss of my father for 30 years, but then losing him again only 1 year after reuniting. It was very traumatic, and it's very difficult, and we see this in many cases over and over and over again. There are different types of GSA. I just wanted to highlight that there are parents and children. Carly and I work with all different types of relationships, and we both feel that the parent-child GSA relationship is the most complicated of those relationships because of the dual roles. When a child enters a reunion with a parent, they are the ones that were rejected or abandoned on some level, so they come into the relationship in a deficit. They're in the red, and the parent is the one who left. So the child wants to keep that parent around. So there's an imbalance of power in parent-child GSA that can be very, very dangerous. And if the parent is not healthy, they can take advantage of the child in this situation, and is what happened in my case, and use their power to get what they want. In sibling GSA, we see this as the most common type of GSA, and we don't know if that's because siblings are more apt to talk about it, and parent and children are not so much. But they share a lot of genetic relationship. When full-blooded siblings reunite, there's a lot of similar DNA there, and so that attraction to someone who is like you can be pretty intense for siblings. It's difficult, especially for half siblings. when, you know, they'll come onto the forum and they'll say, I'm 20, they're 22, we don't have spouses, we don't have children, and we can scientifically make sure that there's no birth defects. What's the problem? Why can't we pursue this? We're like strangers. In fact, if no one had told us we were brother and sister, we would have had no idea. And it's very difficult to convince a brother and sister in this situation that pursuing a sexual relationship is a bad idea. And what we say is that they're not in a vacuum, that even if those two people could make it work, they are two family systems that are coming together. And the minute you change the family roles from a sibling role into a lover role, you upset the dynamic of the entire family systems. And so we really encourage them to see that this is not a viable option, that their feelings need to be dealt with in therapy and counseling and with other people who've experienced GSA so that they can then normalize.
Julie, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
I just want to interject real quick is that the feelings of GSA, we believe, are natural. There's no way of stopping them when they come. So we want to, respect people who are having these feelings. It is the action of taking the feelings to the physical level is where we want to protect people and interject and get the support. So even if a parent is having these feelings, we want to make sure they have the resources so they can get healthy themselves to not commit incest with their child.
That's a good point. So, I mean, you can just look. I've actually said most of this already. Father-daughter GSA, we think, is the second most common after sibling. This is a very dangerous relationship when it becomes sexual because it's very difficult to tell if the daughter is in fact consenting because of the parent-child power imbalance. Mother-son is more rare. We have seen it and heard of it. Barbara Gogno actually felt GSA for her son. She's the first woman who kind of brought genetic sexual attraction to light. She did not act on it, but it's very, very taboo for a mother and for a son to admit that this is happening. So this one we see, but not as often. You want to do this part? Sure.
So how do you support an individual who has reunited and they are experiencing GSA? First and foremost is to get the message out that if you reunite with a family member, you may experience this. Not having any idea, I was in counseling before I reunited with my family. I was prepared for rejection again, or not liking them, or they not liking me. I was not prepared for the opposite because my therapist didn't know about this. There was no way to prepare me for it. Allowing people to have mentorship programs where they have someone who can walk them through. And that's what we do on the forum. I'm a therapist. I walk with the people who come and all the emotions that come with it. Having someone that they could just say, I have these feelings, makes it easier in that they can release all that pressure. Who can they talk to? They can't talk to a best friend because they're afraid they'll be rejected. They can't talk to people in their family because everyone feels that taboo and repulsion, which is normal to feel within a family system, but again, they're reuniting with a stranger. Making sure that they have boundaries, that when you go see this person, do not spend alone time in their bedroom. If it's too hard for you to control yourself, make sure you see each other outside in public and only spend time there until these feelings regress a little bit and lessen. What we see on the forum, and the reason why Julie and I, we were both married when we reunited with our fathers, one reason why we maintained our marriage is that we told our husbands right away that something's off. We had a good relationship with our husbands beforehand, and our husbands noticed. They They can get the idea. My husband says, "What's going on with you and your dad? You're acting like a schoolgirl falling in love." And I'm like, I don't know, but I think it has something to do with the reunion. And that's when I started to go and I went on the internet and I searched for reunion, love, father. And this is when I started to find stuff on genetic sexual attraction. So telling your spouse that you're feeling this, it gives you accountability that this person now knows what you're doing and what you're struggling with. When the spouse is secretive and hidden, it kind of gives them this false sense, I can do whatever I want. The reunited family members need to spend time together. They need to allow these emotions to work themselves through. So they need to do things that they can do that, either playing cards or going to a park for a walk, again, being out in public, so their emotions don't overtake them, that they do commit incest. And then they need counseling. Of course they need counseling. It's just a really hard subject to explore and to deal with. And to deal with, like Julie said, the grief, the loss. We missed 30 years of our lives together. I feel like we have to do that, this intense focus right now. I'm going to lose that if I don't get that. And the counseling will let them know, you have time. You can slow down. It's okay. To prevent GSA, we believe that open adoptions is the best way to go, because the bond didn't happen. Something's happening, we don't know, we need studies, but I grew up in a good home, my adopted home, and so did Julie. It wasn't like we were seeking this other family. There's something happening biologically inside the brain. Maybe it's the smell that you don't see. The mirror of having someone else see and look like you is just triggering something in the brain. If there's an open adoption, they are getting that. So it's not automatic when they're 30 years old, that hits them really hard. Again, education prior to the reunion, knowing about that this can happen, so if they start sensing it, they can get help right away. And coming to the GSA community so people can support them and allow them to know you're not alone. And counseling during the reunion process.
So Carly and I have 3 different resources for people currently, and we're always looking for more. What you can see up on your screen is geneticsexualattraction.com. This is our website where people can get in touch with us. It gives general information about what we just showed you here, as well as the media, the history, and also access to our other services. This is geneticsexualattraction.org. This is our blog. This is, we update this. We try to update it daily. And these are just personal experiences, articles, our own, what we've learned. And this website gets a lot of hits a day. And it's just, you know, it's very interesting. I do blog for a living, and this website gets a ton of traffic and not very many comments, which just tells you how many people are looking for the information but are afraid to come out of the shadows and talk about it. So we have the blog.
Hold on. When we started our blog, we started getting thousands and thousands of people reading it. And, you know, after 6 months, I think we have 10,000 people coming. So the numbers are really high, which is letting us know that people are needing to know about this or they're struggling with it. But again, because of the taboo, they don't want to join a forum. And this is why we have this opportunity for them, that at least you can read and get information.
Yes. It was, I think we started our blog in January, and by October we had 100,000 hits on it. So that's a lot of people looking. This is the forum. This is, I don't know if you've been on an online forum. It's basically you become a member. It's a $30 fee for the year, which keeps it a private community where outside internet viewers cannot see it. And there's just forums and chat rooms and places for people to talk. We have areas for siblings, areas for parents, areas for spouses who have been affected by this, and even area for people who have not even reunited yet. In fact, we have one case of a woman who came on who had not reunited yet, then did, but knew about this ahead of time. Her brother ended up experiencing GSA, but because she had education prior, she knew how to deal with it, and it didn't get out of control, and she still has a relationship with him today, and we are so happy about that, because most of the time, we're getting people after things have fallen apart, and we want to get to them before. Do this.
Because I'm a therapist and developing the forum and the blog and the website, I realize people still have a need. They want more that intimate one-on-one. They're so afraid of telling their story that I developed a site where people can come and get counseling through me, either through Skype, the phone, or instant messaging, some way that we can connect. Sometimes people see therapists, and because they're not educated in this, they might say things to their client that may be counterproductive. They might tell them, stop seeing this person, when that will intrigue such a fear that they feel like, oh no, I can't see my therapist anymore. They don't understand. I'm just going to go again with this person.
That's a good point. These are the two books currently. Carly is working on one which is more like a handbook about genetic sexual attraction, the science, and how to deal with it. The one on the left or the right, this one is Barbara Gogno's book about her experience with GSA with her son. Again, nothing happened between the two. The other book is I just wrote and released in November, and this is my story. I do have a disclaimer on the website so that people know what they're buying before they're buying. It's a very intense book, a very dark book, but I wanted to put my story out there so that other daughters who I get emails from daily saying, thank you for writing, because now I know that I'm not alone, that this has happened to someone else, and if you've spoken up, maybe I can too. And that was my whole goal. So I think that's it.